Hey y'all. So here in New Orleans, we have this word crew. And even if you don't know what it means already, just looking at it, you can tell it means something that's a little bit over the top. When you hear it, you can tell it means something that people do together. And what those people do together is something very over the top. It is New Orleans Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras is this massively famous thing we do, but basically it boils down to a big celebration of the unnecessary. And some people love that idea so much that thousands upon thousands of them in New Orleans dedicate huge chunks of time and money and energy to making some part of this big celebration of the unnecessary happen. So today we are asking, what is it like to be part of making that magic happen? What is it like to be a part of one of the organizations behind all that organized chaos? We're going to give you a partial answer, partly because it's just a huge question. There are hundreds of Mardi Gras crews, but also because some of the more prominent, better known crews have a policy of secrecy, even around who their members are. So we're going to focus on a handful of more open door crews. And while they're very different from each other, the person I'm going to introduce you to first has a rule number one that I think probably everybody could get behind.
If it's not fun, you're not doing it right. And so like that's my mantra on production day is just like, are you having fun? Good. So I'm Chris, also go by Admiral Unicorn. I am the fearless leader of Queer Eye for the Sci-Fi. We are a subcrew of this massive thing called Chewbacca's.
So Chewbacca's is the intergalactic crew of Chewbacca's. It's a crew that throws a parade a few weeks before Mardi Gras Day, and it's one of this handful of crews that have appeared in the last couple of decades that specifically produce walking parades. Chewbacca's is organized into subcrews, which are kind of like the floats in float parades. Each of them has a theme, a concept, and that determines how the people walking in the parade are going to be costumed. And those costume ideas, those themes, come from all over sci-fi fantasy fandom.
So I'm a NOLA transplant. I came to the city in 2015. So I didn't have like that long heritage of watching Carnival, but like I came to it from the cosplay community. That's like really my people, kind of the queer cosplay community. And when I came here, it was just like, it made sense, you know, like the con halls are one thing, but like, baby, this is on the street, and some people, we just like the peacock, and that's just kind of where it came from. I am a fanboy, and so when I was watching Chewbacca's when I first moved to the city, I was just like, I have to be in that. Watching wasn't enough, so I think it was like 2017, I put on a Star-Lord costume from Guardians of the Galaxy, and I was just having a party by myself. And then the bug bit me, and the next year I went ahead and formed Queer Eye for the Sci-Fi.
So you can just start a Mardi Gras crew? Yeah, in this case you can. The only barrier to entering Chewbacca's is paying dues, which are $42 for a year. Another sci-fi reference there. Dues are the most common hurdle to joining a Mardi Gras crew. All of them have expenses they have to pay, like for their parade, they have to have a police escort going along the route, they have to do cleanup after the fact. And for a float parade, they also have to build the floats that they're going to use. So a lot of times their expenses add up to make for dues that are a lot more than $42. But aside from paying dues, sometimes the float parades too have really low barriers to entry.
Just one of my friends was like, hey, do you want to join King Arthur? And I was like, yeah, I'll totally do it. I'm Christoph Jackson, and I will be this year's upcoming king for Petronia's 61st ball. And I'm also one of the writers and participants in the King Arthur parade route.
We're going to come back to the King of Petronius thing, but for now, what is King Arthur?
So King Arthur is one of the Mardi Gras parade crews, right? The ones that roll. At first I was like, oh, I don't want to pay all this money to throw beads and stuff. Oh, that's going to be boring. Then you get up there, it's like, holy shit. Yeah, man, take this, take that. You want some nuggets? Yes. Like, man, it's the things people will do for a stuffed animal on a parade. Oh, it's amazing.
Float parades tend to be the part of Mardi Gras that people recognize. The themed decorations, the marching bands, the truckloads of throws that we give out. But there are elements of them that surprise people too.
They always focus on the quarter. They don't realize most of these things actually go through neighborhoods because most of the throws are for the kids. You know, like And if there aren't kids, you give some to the adults, but you're mostly saving your best throws for the kids. And that's the special parts.
If the idea that kids belong at Mardi Gras parades stretches credulity, here's a second opinion.
So I have two daughters, so I really love going to the daytime parades with my kids. I know everyone thinks New Orleans Mardi Gras is not family friendly, but it is, and it's a lot of fun to just see the families and the kids out on the route. I'm Mandy Cambry. I'm the parade chair of the Sassy Racks.
The Sassy Racks are a dance crew, which is one of the newer additions to the parading landscape here. Used to be that if you wanted to dance in a Mardi Gras parade, you had to do so as part of a marching band, and those are typically high school bands. So normally, the window of life for dancing in a Mardi Gras parade has ended after high school graduation. More recently, though, a lot of adult groups have formed, and now you see them in almost every parade.
And the big thing that we pride ourselves on as Sassy Racks is that we dance the entire parade. So the parade routes are usually about 6 miles long, and it is our commitment that we are going to dance every last foot of it. Our name itself is really a celebration of New Orleans. It's a play on the Sazerac.
The Sazerac is New Orleans' official cocktail. It's a mixture of cognac or whiskey with absinthe, bitters, sugar, and a twist of lemon.
We dress very on theme with the name of our crew, the Sassy Racks. So we have the bartender type vest, we have the colors, the gold and the red that are reflective of the sort of color of the Sazerac, the lemon twist. And our name itself, in addition to the sort of, the tribute to the drink, is also a play on the storming of the Sazerac, which was the feminist storming of the bars back in New Orleans. So a little bit of New Orleans history as well.
The storming of the Sazerac was an event that took place in 1949, and at that time, a lot of bars in New Orleans didn't allow women access except on Mardi Gras Day each year. Newspapers that year announced the opening of the Sazerac Bar, now very famous, but then brand new, inside of the Roosevelt Hotel, and they also announced that the bar was going to allow women in all throughout the year. And so many women showed up on the opening day that it turned heads all across town, and lots of bars soon changed their policy to let women in regularly. So the Sassy Racks, this brand new group founded as part of a new wave in Mardi Gras tradition, are still cognizant of and making references to local history. And the most traditional thing about Mardi Gras is constant innovation. Like, even our float parades were a new element at one point that was foisted on the holiday by out-of-towners. That brings us to another crew that originated as a variation on a classic form, and that is the crew of Petronius, which Christoph mentioned to us earlier. For people who've only ever seen, parade Mardi Gras, how do you explain this?
Oh man, you actually can't. They have to experience it.
Christoph is totally right, but let's give it a try anyway. Unbeknownst to a lot of the people who watch float parades, the parade is just the beginning of the night. The folks riding on the floats, as they reach the end of the route, step off the float and usually then go to a Mardi Gras ball, which is a huge party, sometimes private, sometimes with tickets for the public, that has a spectacle at its center where the crew presents their royalty for the year. And things like that have been happening back to the beginning of float parades and before. It's one of the oldest surviving parts of the local tradition. Starting in the mid-20th century, some groups of gay men started to throw their own variation on Mardi Gras balls, which combined the local version with drag balls that were held in other parts of the country. As for the crew of Petronius
Petronius is one of the oldest active gay balls in the country. And I think when you have a gay crew that has been around for that long, they've seen a lot of different things that have taken place.
Petronius was founded in 1961, just a few years after the first gay Mardi Gras crew in New Orleans, the crew of Yuga. Yuga threw their first ball just a little before the founding of Petronius, and their goal was to create an event that got away from the police raids and the violence that were typical of the bar scene in the French Quarter. So they threw a ball in the suburbs where they thought they would be clear of all of that, but police found out about the event and raided it anyway. And laws at the time about cross-dressing made it really easy to arrest a lot of the attendees. So when Petronius held their first ball the next year, they took steps to prevent that same thing from happening again. They invited lots of allies to attend the event, and they required that all of the attendees come in formal wear. Costumes would only be seen on the stage, and the ones you would see there would be of these titanic proportions. That started a process of change that took gay Mardi Gras balls away from their secretive roots, and it's been steady adaptation ever since.
One of the perspectives that we have grown into has been inclusivity, because we have seen, I think this crew has had a lot more time because it's a lot older, is that it has learned that it wants to be more inclusive because it's gone through all that history. People normally, when they think about a ball, they're normally like, well, I'm not going to be invited. I'm trans. I'm straight. Like I'm lesbian. I'm this. I'm that. At a gay ball, they include everybody, and everybody gets to show up in a way that they authentically want to show up and look their best. People are in their best regalia, they're in sequins, they're in tuxes, they're in hybrids. There are people there who are wearing like Billy Porter inspired like dresses and looking masculine with a beard and like a dress but a tux top and looking fabulous while doing it. It's just like when you have that much creativity at a ball, there's great food, great music, and great presentation.
For this year's Petronius, with Christoph as king, there's inclusiveness not just for who the guests are, but also for who's on stage.
I'm from New Orleans, but I live currently in Atlanta and Tulsa, but I'm back like once a month. So my partner is from Tulsa and some of his friends are involved. And so they're going to be up on stage with me. And at first the question was like, well, shouldn't more people from New Orleans do it? I was like, they go to balls all the time. They're going to be at this ball, at that ball. They've got this costume event, that costume event. If they could have one less ball to go to, I'm not saying they wouldn't do it, but it's kind of a part of the culture, right? And that's kind of the thing. Like, people almost think like if you're not invited, you can't really get a chance to participate. And so the one thing you don't want to see happen is you don't want people to feel like you can't learn something by not inviting them to be a part of it. I think with a lot of things in New Orleans culture, people are quick to appropriate without understanding and appreciating. So why not have someone who's authentically from the space inviting someone in to have an actual authentic experience that comes with uncertainty, that comes with being uncomfortable, but also being supported, encouraged, motivated. Those are the things that yield to creativity.
With every step Petronius has taken to open their doors wider, they've also been able to leave a bigger mark.
The ball itself is actually a charity event. All the money that's raised with the ball actually goes to an organization. So this year it's going to go to Covenant House, but it's gone to other sort of like Lazarus House or things that'll happen. Like, they're always supporting something in the gay community.
A lot of crews are also charity organizations, both during Mardi Gras and during the rest of the year. And in that way, they address both basic needs like food and shelter, and also the basic need to be able to find joy while you're in the midst of all of those hard struggles.
We've gone through a lot from, HIV/AIDS, not having support for trans people, which still continues, having healthcare support services, emotional well-being, jobs, network, all those things. These balls have been a way to have as a release valve.
Chris from Chewbacca's gives us another example of how even the newest parts of Mardi Gras are constantly incorporating older pieces of history. He decided in 2023 that after a few years of parading, it was time for his sub-crew to step up their game. As for what that looked like, you might have noticed the thing that is standing behind him.
Last March, a theater company came on invitation to New Orleans. His name was Andrew Kim, Thingamajig Theater, and they came to show how to make giant puppets, because that is a big part of carnival tradition in lots of European countries. And I mean, it's just badass. It really set off puppet fever in the maker community. So when I saw that, I was just like, we knew we wanted to punch above our weight as a small and mighty crew, and I think a giant puppet was the way to do it. So one of the leaders of Chewbacca's put me in contact with Hannah, and then Hannah assembled her Avengers, and that's how we have this Queen Xeno. And I mean, we couldn't be happier. This thing's gonna be freaking amazing.
So a local acquaintance in the film industry that works for the union, I was talking to her about what I did, and she was like, I have this friend, and can I please connect you with him? And that was Chris. I'm Hannah Garatai. I'm a fabricator, puppet maker, and makeup artist. I'm from here, born and raised, so I've had a long history of attending as a kid, and then I also have been in parades. So this year is now I'm with Queer Eye, and I'll be rolling with them.
Hannah and Chris were a great match, in large part because they were both looking to do something new at the same time.
So I worked at a studio, and that studio went on furlough. And I decided to go freelance with my film career and continue making puppets and creatures. And so when he said what he wanted to do, it was right up my alley.
This is another surprise about Mardi Gras for a lot of newcomers. It's an industry that supports lots of people, including the people who make the floats, the costumes, and the rest of the art.
Well, we're looking at doing a lot of public art, sculpture, puppets, large and small scale, really open for any possibilities.
The we that Hannah is talking about is Leaky Roof Studios, the freelance design studio that she started with several collaborators.
Brooke and I were leaders of an artistic team of puppet makers, and Feltus was a mechanic, and Tim, I've done lots of film work with him doing practical effects and makeup. So these were the guys that I knew to call on. I knew they would be as excited as I was about working on it.
If you want to get Mardi Gras crew members excited, talk to them about their collaborators. That goes for the Sassy Racks and their music.
We have a live DJ who I would argue is maybe the best in the city. We love DJ Payard very much.
It also goes for the teams that make those bonkers costumes for Petronius and other Mardi Gras balls.
It feels like it's about the costume, but what it really is that it's all these other different people who have all these specialized areas of expertise in helping to assemble something you couldn't really do by yourself.
You know, the cool thing about this city is there's so many makers out there, and, you know, being able to collaborate with them to just bring a vision together is really what Carnival's all about.
Naturally, a lot of that excitement is about the shared experience of the big day, the day of the parade, the day of the ball, the day that you get to put what you've made in front of people.
I'm excited. Every single person that has seen her just gets so excited about seeing her move, and she has so much life that you kind of lose the puppeteer in her when you look at her completely. So I'm just looking forward to having people love her as much as we do.
But on the way there, it's a lot of work.
Really, it's a elegant dance between the fabrication of our exterior body, which was my colleague Brooke and I, and then working with mechanics on the interior body. So we're constantly just going back and forth, building and rebuilding until you get this perfect creature at the end.
That work took 4 professionals a month to do. And for the non-professional members of Queer Eye, the choice to step up their game this year meant more preparation for everybody. At some point, Hannah and the team passed off the puppet to Chris and the rest of the crew to put on some finishing touches.
I mean, she just has to look more sickening than she already is. I mean, we have an aesthetic, we are bright, we're gaudy, and, you know, she just has to blend in. Like, she's spooky, but, like, I mean, we just have to bling it up a little bit.
The work to produce a float parade like King Arthur goes on for much of the year. The crew brings on professionals to make their floats and their costumes, and the riders themselves are going to spend a lot of hours crafting signature throws, like the grails that they give out at the King Arthur parade. Christoph does all of that, plus costume fittings and rehearsals for Petronius, and then there's the big days themselves. And this year, Petronius is on Saturday night, and King Arthur is on Sunday morning. And that Saturday night is not easy. The king is responsible for a lot of hosting duties.
A huge part of even being the king of this year's ball is I'm actually hosting about 80 people. I provide them food, drink, all that stuff, you know, a well-lit table, and a presentation. A part of the invitation, I don't think people understand, like when you're invited and said there's a space at the table for you, it's What do you like to eat? What kind of things do I have there for you as a guest, completely at my expense?
So it's actually a fair commitment of time for us. So through the Mardi Gras season, we are in multiple parades. This year, the Sassy Recs are in 5 parades, and we also do a few walking parades throughout the year for Christmas, for Halloween. So we always have to be ready to dance, and we also get called to do performances throughout the year when folks want a little bit of Mardi Gras culture at their event. So we are always practicing. We practice from the months of July all the way up through March. We take a short spring break, and then we get right back to it. And those practices are 3 times a week. We do 2 regular practices and then what we call a marching practice, where we go to City Park or Audubon Park, and we literally do a couple of miles just marching, just as if we were in a parade, to make sure that we have the dances down pat, that we're smiling, that we've got it all together, have our spacing correct. And the big thing that we pride ourselves on as Sassy Recs is that we dance the entire parade. So the parade routes are usually about 6 miles long, and it is our commitment that we are going to dance every last foot of it.
So being in a crew is work, and sometimes enough work that it's easy to imagine it being hard to fit into a life that is already really full.
You prioritize, and this is definitely one of my priorities, because it's a really fun time with our friends, and we love being out there celebrating the city.
I'm actually a surgical PA for urology. I'm also a neuroscientist. I'm also a neurosurgery PA, and I'm also a concert pianist. I have a PhD in neurobiology, mechanical engineering, and piano performance. It's all up in the gumbo, baby. It's gumbo. It's gumbo, baby. We're used to that.
How do you fit the Mardi Gras stuff into all of that?
How do you not?
How does it play well?
Baby, how do you not? That's a better question. I mean, look, people can get so locked into their lives that they forget to take a moment to celebrate life. That's the thing I think is really tough for people. Getting together to do glitter, to do something that seems completely, how do you say, fantastical, or, just something that's completely outside your typical walk of life. How else can you get any creativity?
I'm an HIV primary care doctor, and the struggle against HIV is like a long-term struggle, a long-term fight. And I think the cool thing about doing carnival in your off time is you get that energy back so that you can go back at it, go back to the fight. And also another thing that doctoring has taught me is you don't know how long you have on this mortal coil. So it's just one of those things, like, you should go out there, you should have fun. And I think things like this always prove that to me.
Y'all, this video is a little different from a lot of what we've done in the past. We had a great time doing it, but we would love to hear if you would like to see more things like this in the future. And while we are putting new faces on our old traditions here, we still, like always, rely on y'all to be able to keep putting one of our big pink monstrous feet in front of the other. So you'll find information in the description below for how to tip your guides and help keep the lights on over here. Huge thanks to those of you who have supported the channel in the past, and big thanks to all of you who have come to New Orleans and taken tours with our crew at Free Tours by Foot in person. And if any of the crews in this video are appealing to you and you'd like to follow their work or even reach out about collaboration, you can find their information down in the description as well. Here's to finding your own gloriously unnecessary things right where you are. Thanks for watching.